You didn't fall in love, you fell into something familiar. The chaos, the confusion, the desperate need to be seen by someone who couldn't even see themselves. It wasn't love, it was a trauma bond disguised as passion. And the price was your peace. Most people think trauma bonds only happen in obviously toxic relationships, the kind that leave bruises or break the law. But trauma bonding is more common than we realize. It shows up in situations that look like love, but feel like survival. If you've ever felt addicted to someone who made you feel small, if you've ever mistaken intensity for intimacy, if you've ever confused being needed with being loved, you may have been trapped in a trauma bond. The hardest part, these bonds don't just come from the present, they come from the past, from unhealed childhood wounds still aching to be resolved, but replaying themselves in the arms of someone emotionally unavailable. You don't realize it at first, because at first it feels electric. The pull is undeniable. The connection, instant. It feels like fate, like you've finally found someone who understands you. But over time, something shifts. The warmth turns cold. The tenderness turns tense. You're constantly questioning yourself, walking on eggshells. And yet, you can't seem to walk away. That's not love. That's a trauma bond. Carl Jung taught us something haunting. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. When you form a trauma bond, it isn't just chemistry, it's psychology. It's a reenactment of unresolved patterns. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, a psychic urge to return to the scene of the original wound, not to suffer, but to heal. You meet someone, they feel like home, but not because they're safe, because they activate your unfinished story. The unpredictable behavior, the push and pull, the emotional roller coaster. All of it mirrors what you once knew. Maybe it was a parent who withheld affection. Maybe it was a caregiver who only loved you when you performed. Maybe you learned that love came with conditions, that you had to earn it, chase it, prove you were worthy of it. And now your inner child is trying to win the love it never received. So you stay, you fight, you hope, even when your soul is slowly eroding. Jung believed that the psyche doesn't just want pleasure, it wants wholeness. And sometimes the road to wholeness leads straight through the pain we've spent years avoiding. The trauma bond is an invitation, a painful one, yes, but also a sacred one. Because through it, we meet the parts of ourselves we've long ignored, the wounds, the fears, the masks we wear just to be loved. And once we see them, really see them, the pattern can finally be broken. Let's make this real. Imagine someone who constantly walks on eggshells around their partner. They fear doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong word, being too emotional. And yet, they feel an intense connection. This isn't love, this is nervous system entanglement. The body associates fear with closeness and unpredictability with desire. Or think of the empath who attracts narcissists. Every time, they give more than they have. They mistake being drained for being chosen. They call it loyalty, but really, it's an old wound reenacting itself. The narcissist mirrors the part of them that still believes they have to earn love. The part that says, if I can just be good enough, kind enough, selfless enough, they won't leave. Another example, the person who keeps returning to the one who broke them. Not because of weakness, but because of emotional addiction. Their brain is wired for the highs and lows, the drama, the release, the hope. Trauma bonds are like drugs. They hijack the nervous system. They distort reality. They keep you hooked with intermittent rewards, a kind word here, an apology there, just enough to keep your soul on the leash. And here's the tragedy. You start to confuse suffering with love. You begin to believe that your pain is proof of devotion. This is how the cycle sustains itself. You get lost in it, not because you're broken, but because you were never shown what real love actually looks like. Love should not feel like tension in your chest. It should not make you question your worth. It should not require you to abandon yourself just to keep someone else around. When Jung said the unconscious will run our lives, this is exactly what he meant. We recreate what we know until we choose something different. There are silent beliefs that keep trauma bonds alive. They live deep in the unconscious, and unless we challenge them, they dictate who we chase and who we allow to hurt us. Here are a few of the most dangerous. If I leave, I'll be alone forever. Maybe I'm the problem. They need me. Without me, they'll fall apart. I can't start over. I've invested too much. These are not truths. They are trauma responses, born from scarcity, from abandonment, from growing up in an emotional drought where any drop of connection felt like a miracle. But love is not a bargain, and your soul is not a currency. Healing begins when you stop negotiating with pain and start honoring the parts of you that only ever wanted to feel safe. Even when your mind knows it's over, your body might not. Because trauma isn't just psychological, it's physiological. The tight chest when their name appears on your screen, the stomach drop when you hear a certain tone in someone's voice, the trembling hands after yet another argument. These are not just emotions, they are stored memories. The body keeps score. In a trauma bond, your nervous system becomes conditioned to confusion, to adrenaline, to the cycle of rupture and repair. That's why healing takes time. You're not just breaking a habit, you're rewiring your entire internal world. Safety won't feel like safety at first. It will feel unfamiliar, boring even. But stay there. Let your nervous system learn a new rhythm, one that doesn't spike with fear or crash into grief. This is how you reclaim your body. This is how you begin again. They say they'll change, and maybe they mean it, but meaning something is not the same as doing it. False hope is one of the strongest threads in a trauma bond. It keeps you hanging on. It tells you, maybe next time. It dangles a future that never arrives. But real love doesn't need to promise healing. It is healing. Real love doesn't confuse you. It doesn't make you feel like you're too much. It doesn't go silent when you need reassurance. If you're constantly needing to prove your worth, to explain your pain, to beg for clarity, that's not love. That's self-abandonment in disguise. You deserve something steady. Not perfect, but safe. Not dramatic, but deep. Not intense, but true. Imagine this. 5 years from now, you wake up in a life that finally feels like yours. There is calm. There is clarity. There is love. Quiet, consistent love. The version of you who is healed is watching you now. They're not angry at your patterns. They understand them. But they're waiting for you to remember your worth, waiting for you to stop mistaking pain for purpose, waiting for you to come home to yourself. Because one day, this story will just be a story. One day, you will look back and say, that was the chapter that broke me open, and that's when I finally chose myself. Here's the truth. A trauma bond will always feel more intense than a healthy relationship because it activates the parts of you that are still trying to survive. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. Chemistry is not the same as compatibility. And chaos is not love. It's the body remembering what it once endured and mistaking it for connection. So how do you break a trauma bond? First, name it. Say it out loud. This is not love. This is emotional addiction. The unconscious begins to lose power the moment it's named. Second, reclaim your story. You are not the child still waiting to be chosen. You are not the person who has to earn their worth. You are not here to be drained so someone else can feel whole. Third, feel the grief. Grieve the fantasy. Grieve the version of them you hoped they would become. Grieve the years you spent trying to fix something that was never your job to fix. Grieve and release. Then choose peace over chaos. It may feel boring at first. It may feel unfamiliar. But peace is what love actually looks like, when your nervous system has healed enough to recognize it. There is love out there that doesn't make you shrink. There is love that doesn't ask you to bleed. There is love that meets you as you are, not as who you perform to be. It may take time, it may take therapy, it may take losing people you thought you couldn't live without, but it will be worth it. You thought it was love, but it was a trauma bond. And now you know the difference, not just in your mind, but in your body, in your heart, in your soul. And that knowing, that's where your healing begins. If this spoke to something deep in you, if you saw yourself in this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Psych Now. This is a space for people doing the hard inner work, a space where the unconscious becomes conscious and the wounded become whole. Until next time, keep walking toward your healing.